For most people, especially those on the coast, Oklahoma is nothing more than a flyover state. Nobody thinks twice about any of the small towns scattered across the rolling plains of the Sooner State. However, there is one town in Oklahoma that could be considered the most important place in all of the United States. This is Cushing, Oklahoma, a mere town of 8,000 people, roughly in between of the two major cities in all of that state, 70 miles northeast of Oklahoma City and 50 miles west of Tulsa. In rural Payne County, Oklahoma, lies an average 21st century highway town. With Oklahoma Highway 33 as a main road running through the town and neighborhoods expanding on both north and south sides of the highway, Cushing is just about as average as it gets, having only one school district to serve the 1,800 students from the town, a single Walmart to supply the local residents, and a splattering of restaurants spanning the main street. There's not much to offer from the seemingly monotonous hamlet. That ends the uniqueness of Cushing. For most people at least, if you drive either north or south for at least a mile, you'll run into miles and miles of steel storage tanks that fan out from Cushing, the world's largest onshore oil storage and energy market hub. Cushing was not always like this. The town was first laid out in 1891 when its founder, William Billy Ray Little, chose the site for a new town. The town grew slowly, and only after 20 years, the population boasted a high of 1,100 residents. However, the town would see its biggest contribution to its growth in its history when a gusher was found a mere 9 miles away, attracting thousands of oil-field workers to the area. These people from all walks of life started striking black gold in the vast majority of the wells they dug. Refineries, tracks, and storage units were built all around the town to hold the oil pumped from the surrounding fields. The boom would continue until 1915, when the fields produced 8.3 million barrels of oil. Life was looking good for Cushing, or so it may seem. In 1916, the production declined more than 50%, causing the town, the population, and its oil fields to shrink. In 30 years, only 3 refineries were left open. At this time, the town would see its peak population of almost 9,000 residents. But in the 1980s, the last major oil refineries closed, rail service ended, and the people started leaving for a better place. However, through all this, the town and its oil fields persisted, not in the same way as before. After the economic downturn of the early 20th century, the town rebounded, but the fields themselves dried up. What remained was 39 storage tanks and pipelines that could move 1.5 million barrels of oil a day. Since the infrastructure was already in place, and as it was strategically located in the center between the Canadian, the Midwest, and mid-continent oil fields, and the Gulf Coast export docks and refineries, Cushing became the logical place to store crude oil from all over Canada and the United States. Cushing transformed itself into a way station, a very important stop between oil production fields and refineries. But in the 1990s, Cushing became a hub of West Texas Intermediate, WTI for short, futures trading contracts for the crude oil that was physically pouring into the town. Hundreds of storage tank farms sprang up in the surrounding land, making Cushing a major hub of oil trading on the North American continent. When you look closer at Cushing, Oklahoma, you can see 2 main oil tanker facilities, the smaller, more scattered facility called Cushing North on the north side of Highway 33, and the bigger facility on the south side called Cushing South. When combined, these 2 storage facilities cover an estimated 5,000 acres of land, which include 350 huge above-ground tanks, some which are as wide as 300 feet in diameter and 48 feet tall and capable of holding up to 600,000 barrels of oil. With a total storage capacity of 90 million barrels of oil in all their tanks, this makes Cushing the largest onshore oil storage farm in the entire world. There are a total of 14 major storage operators that manage the many terminals in the Cushing area, with 3 main companies, Plains All American, Enbridge, and Magellan Midstream Partners, who own a combined 60% of the entire storage capacity, the rest sharing the last 40% of the oil storage. To import and export the staggering amount of crude oil, Cushing hosts 20 inbound pipelines that transport oil to the Cushing tanks, 14 outbound pipelines that send oil away, and over 30 intra-Cushing transfer pipelines that connect all the main storage facilities together. The principal inbound pipelines originate in 5 main areas: Western Canada, the Rockies, the Bakken Formation, Permian Basin, and Oklahoma itself. The Canadian pipelines include the 2,147-mile Keystone Pipeline, originating in Alberta, Canada, the Canadian-owned 650-mile Spearhead Pipeline, and the 593-mile-long Flanagan South Pipeline from Illinois. The Rockies include the 760-mile Pony Express Pipeline from Wyoming, the 550-mile Saddlehorn Mesa and White Cliffs pipelines, both starting in Colorado. The aforementioned Pony Express pipeline also sends extracted oil from the Bakken Formation from North Dakota and Montana. The Permian Basin is supported by 2 pipelines, the 519-mile-long Basin Pipeline originating in Texas and the Centurion Pipeline, which starts in New Mexico. Finally, there are a few pipelines in Oklahoma itself that are connected to Cushing. These pipelines include the 90-mile Stack Pipeline and the 215-mile Glass Mountain Pipeline. With all these pipelines added together, they are able to transport up to 3.8 million barrels of oil a day. All these pipelines converge on the Cushing storage tanks to be held until transport somewhere else, most likely to the Gulf for exportation. The outbound pipelines send oil to many different places, from exporting to refining. Most of the pipelines make a beeline to the Gulf Coast, such as the 526-mile Seaway Pipeline and the 435-mile Trans-Canada's Market Link Pipeline, both bound for ports in Texas and Louisiana, or to other refineries in the Mid-South, such as Arkansas, Louisiana, and Tennessee, and in the Midwest, such as Ohio, Illinois, and Minnesota. These outbound pipelines are able to transport up to 3.1 million barrels of oil a day. Cushing's influence does not just stop on the North American continent. Based on how much crude oil is stored in its tanks, WTI is able to play a big role on the world stage. This is because Cushing is the pricing point for the WTI oil prices, the most traded oil futures contract in the world. If the inventories in the Cushing tanks fall, price per barrel rises. Likewise, when the inventories grow, the price per barrel falls. Even a small rise of 3 to 5 million barrels in the Cushing stocks could easily change WTI prices by $15 to $20 per barrel, as seen happen in 2015 when Canadian oil imports to the US decreased, thus causing a fall in the Cushing inventories, which led to a $15 increase in WTI prices. This considerable power to influence the price of oil gives the North American oil producing companies the ability to compete on the world stage with OPEC. For a small town in rural Oklahoma, the convergence of thousands of miles of pipelines into a single place on the continent makes Cushing, a town of 8,000 people, one of the most, if not the most important places in all of the United States. For this reason is why Cushing, Oklahoma is called the pipeline crossroads of the world.